I mean, the whole idea of situationship is probably it's kind of going with the flow, but it's basically the flow is going on the toxic direction.
I don't think you can just be unaware. You will eventually notice, and you're also like party to it.
Do you think situationships are planned?
I was specifically referring to the person not knowing.
From a Gen Z perspective, how do you identify that when you're in a situationship?
I think if you're ending a situationship, it can most definitely have the same impact that ending a normal relationship would have.
So I guess with modern times, what I'm seeing is across the board, probably if you're in your 20s or 30s or whatever and you're unmarried, you probably are going to be extremely picky. And the older you get, the more picky you get. Contrary to what people think, people don't settle down. It's the other way around now. And I think as they get more picky with age, when they find someone potentially good, they are afraid to commit to them. And that's how you land up in a situationship. Hi, I'm Vikram.
Hi, I'm Kushi, and you have tuned into Gibberish.
For all those who are tuning in for the first time, Gibberish is a banter between a millennial and a Gen Z about all things love, dating, and relationship. And if you haven't guessed already, today's episode is about situationships.
So, Vikram, let's talk gibberish.
Let's talk gibberish.
So, situationships. How do you define a situationship as a millennial?
To be clear, I don't think situationships change from millennial and Gen Z in terms of generations. I don't think that it changes according to generations.
Mhm.
My take is situationships are based on actually experiences or the phase of a relationship that you are going through with someone. And I think it's across generations, probably a lot more rampant in Gen Z than millennial, purely because of the phase of life or the stage of life they are in. But I don't think that is generational. I think it's across generations.
But it does happen, right?
100% it happens, and it happens to everyone.
And you mentioned stage of life. If it has to happen with a millennial, what could be the circumstances?
Like I said, pretty much the same as it would be for a Gen Z. So it's the same across generations. I just think that situationships are based on what juncture of life you're in, like in the sense of, and I'll give you a really good example of that. Like if someone is looking to marry and they meet someone else looking to marry is different from someone who is still exploring. You have to be in synchrony with each other in terms of what you want out of that relationship. And I think when there is a lack of, when they are not in sync, the two people are not in sync, or rather the end game is not clear, you'll end up being in a situation.
Definitely, I think the dynamic is impaired. There's no communication. As you rightly pointed out, the end game is not clear. So I think it's an arrangement in order to be intimate with one another, but without commitment.
I don't think it's an arrangement.
You don't think it's an arrangement?
No, I think situationship is an unconscious relationship that you're in.
But
Situationship,
at some point,
I don't think anyone plans that let's have a situationship, because situationship is different from casual dating, situationship is different from fling, and situationship is different from relationship.
How would you classify? How is it different than a casual relationship or a fling? Or
Casual
hookup?
relationship or a fling is something that both are very clear, is left to only a physical intimacy or other physical experience that you're having with the other person. That's how flings work. At least it's completely based on physical. Casual dating is where both are, it's an understood fact and an unspoken or rather spoken discussion that what we want out of this is casual. Situationship is where you are trapped in a place where you are literally committed to the person without officially being committed to the person. So in a sense, situationship is not a planned relationship. It's not a planned scenario. It's a very unplanned scenario, and it's something that is not consciously done by either of the party, unless someone is being manipulative and that person, he or she, is deliberately wanting to have a situationship. But usually, people land up being stuck in it. It's an unexpected accident when you meet someone.
But definitely, if you're staying in a situationship, I think there are so many of us who don't know how to get out of it because, okay, sure,
Eh,
you have the fear of commitment. You also have the fear of letting go. So you're so afraid of spoiling this little fantasy world that you've built for yourself. But at the same time, you also don't want to, make let it prolong for a very long time.
which is exactly why I mentioned that situationship is not an arrangement like a fling or a casual dating such scenario. Situationship is a place that you're kind of stuck in when you're trying to navigate that phase of, or trying to channelize into relationship, and you're somehow not able to for some reason. I think one out of the two people in a situationship, and when I mean one out of two, as in one of the two people who are in it, is usually commitment phobic, and that's how
Absolutely.
you'll end up being. It could also be that he or she is not commitment phobic, but they are hesitating because they love the person but they are in different countries, or they have different religions, or they want to marry someone who their parents have selected, so they can't go all the way to commit. It's not that they're necessarily commitment phobic, but usually that is the case. And I feel like, um, I mean, well, the most important thing I want to know, since you asked me about millennial and Gen Z, from a Gen Z perspective, how do you identify that when you're in a situationship? How do you know, as a Gen Z, how people of your generation, your times, how do they know that this is a situationship? How do they identify that?
I think being somebody from the Gen Z, people don't want to settle. They like having options. So basically, I feel like Gen Zs have a list. It's like सब कुछ list के हिसाब से गया. Then will I think of getting a tad more serious. But if all of my boxes are not checking, why do I settle down to this one person?
Are you trying
So,
to say they're more picky?
yes, they are more picky, definitely. So a situationship allows you to explore more options, at the same time have that special feeling with a certain someone, because it's definitely more than friendship but less than a relationship. Does that answer your question?
Yes, but I also see that with people of my generation,
Hmm.
but in today's time. So I guess with modern times,
Uh-huh.
what is what I'm seeing is across the board. Probably if you're in your 20s or 30s or whatever, and you're unmarried, you probably are going to be extremely picky, and the older you get, the more picky you get.
That's true.
Contrary to what people think, people don't settle down. It's the other way around now. In today's day and age, I think most people are getting more picky with age, and as I think as they get more picky with age, when they find someone potentially good, they are afraid to commit to them, and that's how you land up in a situationship.
And I also think millennials would have reached a stage in their life where they would be okay with that form of distance that they have, you know, with respect to having somebody new coming in their life. It's like life ab tak chal rahi hai. I have my own thing to do.
If I have to,
And, and I haven't committed till now. So, do I feel the need to commit matlab, even now?
yeah, I think I mean, I can use my own example as someone who's single, and I've just touched 40, and I can tell you safely that, and it's just not me. I've checked with my friends as well, guys and girls who are single and close to my age, or anyone 30, north of 30, and I feel like most of them believe that they don't need, they don't have a need to be with someone after some point, in the sense that I think most of us love our independence so much that we reached a point where we are happy with the idea of not having a partner,
Right.
or that's not, it's not the end game, it's not the end all. We're not, it doesn't change how my life, how my day goes if I'm single. It's not like the world is shattering, the earth is shattering or something, the sky is falling down on me.
Hmm.
I'm absolutely okay being single, and I think a lot of people are so used to that individuality that they may
Yeah.
lose if they're in a relationship. But again, that's how it lands up being in a situationship, because you may meet someone potentially good, but you don't feel the need to commit to them,
Hmm.
and then they are more than a fling or more than casual dating, and then you'll end up in a situationship.
But you know what? If you feel the need to not commit, situationships are by nature short term. So what if you miss out on the opportunity of that potential, you know, in the bargain of having that conflict within you of not committing, and usme time nikal gaya, and then the situationship is over.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is the biggest drawback, or rather, the biggest con of being in one. Because
Hmm.
I feel, and it's, by the way, I don't necessarily feel that situationship is always short term. I know people who have been in situationship for 1 year, 2 years, and I feel that they're just trapped. They're not able to move on from that person,
Okay.
and it's on and off. It's on and off, and they are not able to pick or go for someone better, right? So I absolutely agree with you on that. Like, no doubt about it. Like, you're shutting doors that are potentially better for you, healthier for you. I mean, firstly, let's be clear: situationship is unhealthy every
Unhealthy.
single time. There's no
Yes.
exception to it.
Absolutely.
Like I said, it's not an arrangement. It's a situation that you've got yourself into.
Uh-huh.
So unless you transition it into something more healthy, it's not something that's good for you anyways long term. But 100% agree with you on that. I think if you're in one, you kind of are shutting down a lot of good doors for you.
You also end up, trapping yourself in a box, building yourself a nice comfort zone. And when you're so comfortable and you're like, I'm not even exclusive. Oh yeah, let's talk about this. Because you're not exclusive in a situationship, how do you emotionally define yourself getting attached to anyone else?
The whole thing with situationship is that it comes with expectations. If it does not have expectations, it's not a situationship. This is how I look at it. I mean, the whole idea of situationship is probably, it's kind of going with the flow, but it's basically the flow is going on the toxic direction. Like I said, it's never planned. So it's usually a situation where you're going with the flow with someone, and you reach a place where, I mean, you understand that situationship cannot happen without expectations. So almost all cases, at least one of them is expecting something out of the other person, which is why it's become a situationship. uh, and I feel like in a place like that, there is a fallback plan for you. At
Hmm.
least for me, to be honest, whenever I've been in one, I can see that it's subconsciously taken as a fallback plan, and I'm not a big fan of that. Like, I feel like, and I'm sure everyone has been through that. Like, I'm sure everyone's been through situationships. It's usually people who are probably in that phase of life where they're not looking to marry, maybe at a younger age, that they can say something like that.
I've actually heard this from a millennial. And Vikram, talking about expectations, I feel like it's such a broad spectrum when it comes to situationships. Let's dissect the various situations of a situationship.
So yeah, I think if we have to further dive into this,
Mm-hmm.
I would say that, I mean, the obvious one is where two people from both sides have expectations, and I say it's toxic because obviously they fight about it, they call each other, and I mean, they act like they're in a relationship, but they don't
But
commit.
they're not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's one kind, which is the very obvious one, and there's the other one, which is more so one-sided, or rather, one is having expectation, the other one is
Not wanting to
not
commit.
wanting to.
Right.
And obviously, that one, especially the one who's not wanting to commit, for him or he or her or him, it's easy to pull up the card of saying, but you're not my partner, I'm not seeing you. So every time they do something which a single person would do, whether it's meeting someone new, going on dates, or doing stuff on their own, and the other person questions, they can always pull up the card that, hey, you're not my girlfriend, hey, you're not my
We
boyfriend.
were not committed.
Right, exactly.
And you know what is the one other thing that people in situationships say?
What, that I'm not ready to commit?
Let's just live in the moment. I don't want to have any regrets in life.
I think that's a go with the flow attitude, but do you think that it's intentionally done in the sense of,
I think it is intentionally done. For sure.
I don't think so, because I feel that would be casual dating.
I just feel like you don't know how to get out of it. You want this to pull on for a little longer. And you're just trying to latch onto whatever remaining, you have with the partner. It's like temporary explanation. Or like,
Do you think people are comfortable in situationships? Because usually I feel situationship is um, it's kind of muddy waters where you're sinking. Most people are aware of it, by the way,
Yeah.
because they kind of want to transition into a relationship,
Uh-huh.
which is why they keep going on and trying, or they are unable to get out of it. They are madly in love with the person, they can't get out. In both the cases, I think they are very much cognizant of the fact that this is not going to have a happy ending. So I don't think that, like you said, I don't think it's you. I don't think situationship is a case of people being manipulative or planning in a manipulative way, unless there is a third way where one of them is completely oblivious
Hmm.
and the other one is having expectations all the time. That's another kind of situationship where one, like I might take her as a friend, but she is expecting and she's continuously behaving as if in a relationship, which is a third way of uh,
But I don't think you can just be unaware. Like you will eventually notice, and you're also like party to it.
so hold on. You think situationships are planned?
I was specifically referring to the person not knowing. अरे friendly है, ऐसा नहीं होता है, पता होता है. People know what they're doing.
Yeah, but I mean, look, leading someone on is different.
Huh.
Both of them together, like I'm saying, if one of them is leading the other on, it's different. But it is never planned by two people. Situationship is never planned.
Let it not be planned, but the moments you're sharing with each other, the kind of intimacy that you have with each other. Okay, talk about physicality. You get physical or you don't get physical?
100% you get physical.
100% you get physical.
I do know about situationships where they don't get physical. I do know about those as well.
Okay, how does that work?
That works in the sense where, again, the end game is relationship or marriage,
Uh-huh.
and they're struggling to come out of it,
Mm-hmm.
or they're finding a way to make it work. And while they're doing it, physical intimacy is not at the top of the agenda.
So I think we can have this attachment spectrum
Yeah.
where we can classify it as how far you've reached with respect to being physical and mentally involved, being physical, mentally, and emotionally involved, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual.
I don't know about the spiritual part, but I agree the rest of the three.
फिर तो कर लो शादी यार.
Yeah. So I think coming back to what you said, I don't think that unless there's a situation where one of them is misleading the other, usually the case is that there's an attachment between the two
Definitely.
and they're not able to come out of it.
Yes.
If you're talking about someone who is, like you said, that after some time continuing the situationship as a plan, then he's just a player. He or she is just a player. They're just leading the other person on. That's not a situationship. That's
Are we
complete-
also talking about gaslighting in situationships?
I don't. That's what I'm saying. I don't think
Well.
that is, from my point of view, at least from my personal experience, situationship is not about gaslighting. It's about landing up in a really dirty place, I can say, or unhealthy place where you're not heading anywhere.
But there was this one situation that we spoke about within situationships where one person is expecting more and the partner does not want to take it further.
Oh, definitely. Like I said, there are two different types.
Yeah,
one-
exactly.
One major one is this, and I mean, how would you tackle that? How would you handle? Let's just try to decipher this. How do you, or decode? How do you tackle a situationship? How do you handle it?
To be very honest, I feel like before I get into anything, I would rather have where we're getting at very clear at the beginning. I think intent is very important to be discussed, at least when, especially when you're dating in the modern times, because everybody is emotionally at a very different space. So even if somebody is single or available, I think if somebody is going to ask me out, if I'm available to date, I think there are 3 pointers that I would like to touch upon. That I'm single, I'm unattached, and I am emotionally available. Because you can be single but not emotionally available. You can be single but attached. You know what I'm saying? So situationships, there is attachment. There is emotional unavailability. And then there is being single.
I don't think people are emotionally unavailable in situationships, and I also feel that you said that at the beginning you will ask intentions.
Yeah.
I don't, like I said again, I don't think situationship is about intentions, because in such you could have the intent to marry and you still kind of get stuck in a rut. So situationship has nothing to do with intent. The if someone is doing that gaslighting, that's different. And if someone is misleading you or keeping you hanging, that's different. Situationship is probably when you may even have the intent, but it's just not going anywhere.
But then, how do you define being emotionally unavailable but still remaining in a situationship? Then wouldn't you be okay to commit?
No, because I mean, it really depends on circumstances, right? In some cases, you may
Okay.
have someone wanting to commit, like I gave you example right at the beginning about an instance of someone having religious issues, which is by the way very common.
Hmm.
Two people falling in love, parents not approving for whatever reason,
Right.
whether it's religion or class system or whatever they're following. That's one example. The other one is long distance. So
I agree with
these are
you.
clear cut places where you have an intent, but you can't do anything about your intent.
But then you cannot let this go on forever. So, how do you decide when you should get out of it? And when you know you're not being able to, what are the things that we can do to get out of it? Because it's unhealthy.
From my point of view, I think the first thing you need to do is disconnect with someone the minute you identify in a situationship. Identifying that, hey, I'm in a situationship is the first thing.
Yeah, identification, yes.
And
Sometimes,
I think for me, the way I would identify that I'm in a situationship is purely by observing how I respond to things with her or how she responds to things with me. For instance, if I don't speak to her for a day, or if I don't respond in a day, or if I'm MIA for 6 hours or 8 hours,
hmm,
how does she respond to that? Is for me to understand, oh my God, this is going to the situationship bracket. This is slowly, gradually moving that side.
hmm.
Something like that. Or even expectations of being exclusive with her when she's not my girlfriend. That's a clear cut sign of situationship. And I would straight away cut off because I don't want to mislead the person.
Instead of cutting off in the fear of misleading the person, why can't we also think of having a conversation and deducing the fact that yes, we are in a situationship? Because sometimes situationships also turn into relationships.
Yeah, so when I mean cutting off, I meant having a dialogue with the person
Okay.
and telling that person that if I'm not feeling strong as that person is, then telling them that I'm not looking at a relationship with you and I can see that you're developing expectations which are not friendly,
Hmm.
and it's best that we cut off. That's how I would handle it, unless I'm interested in a relationship with that person. If I'm interested in a relationship with that person, then I'll even have another dialogue about it, that are you looking at the same thing I'm looking? So all I'm saying is, I mean, I think everyone's been through in situationships at some point.
Yeah.
And for me, it's all about identifying when I'm getting into one. And the minute I do, I try to catch the bull by the horns and knock it out. Unfortunately for me, I've had a whole truckload of experience in this aspect, purely because I've and it, I've been stupid as well. I've got my heart broken in situationships, or rather situations which I thought were relationships, but they were not. They were situationships, and I've had like a whole series of those. And it's easy for me now to identify when I'm probably falling into old pattern or getting into a situation which is unhealthy for me.
I think I agree with you because I have also been in situationships which I thought were relationships but were not relationships, at least from the other person's end. So I want you to point out, how do you know that you are in a situationship, and then how do you actively make an effort to get out of it?
So one very common thing that happens with situationship is unrequited love,
Hmm.
where the person is not reciprocating, uh, or rather not having the intent to have a relationship in my case. And where I've also been in a situation where both of us have the intent but circumstances don't let us.
I just want to say ouch.
But I think what I've learned from, I mean, I can tell you how do I identify as well and what I
Hmm.
went through in those cases, because, and I don't know, again, it's everyone has a different experience, but in my case, most of them were related to long distance more than anything else. I think it never reached a point where there was refusal of
Hmm.
It never was. Fortunately, it was never related to anyone family having a problem or something to do with us wanting to get married or any of that. It kind of got stuck way before that, which was completely based on distance.
All
And
right.
I've also been, of course, in a situation where the person is coming out of another relationship,
Hmm.
and then I've come into the picture, and she's not in a place to commit to me. And even if she wants to commit, she's not able to give 100%. And that's a situationship. That's a perfect example of a situationship where um, we are literally dating. We don't have a title to it, and it's
Mm-hmm.
extremely unhealthy because I don't see it going either way. So, and I think the only thing I've learned from all these is that when I see from far as well now, and I have seen, again, it's happened to me very recently as well, where I have seen that, okay, this is landing up going towards a situationship, uh, you kind of pull the plug. So that's one thing I can tell you that has worked for me, which is
Hmm.
identifying and trying to stay away, stay clear. Because the other thing with situationships is, again, I've not been in it for long because I always tend to walk out when I see toxicity or unhealthy patterns. But I think I know people who are in situationships for years,
Hmm.
and that could be because something is stopping them from marrying, and that's usually the reason why they're still in it, because they want to marry. And that's not the case with me. I've never reached a point where I want to marry the person and we continue for years, so but there's no timeline or deadline to it.
Hmm.
There's no lifeline to it. I mean, it's all completely based on the two people, how long you continue it. But one thing for sure is that it's every single time it's unhealthy. It's extremely unhealthy.
Let's elaborate more on the things that are unhealthy, or like some pointers. I think it's extremely private. You're not ready to let the world know that you're with this person.
That's not unhealthy.
How is that not unhealthy?
I think some people like it to be private. Some people like it being private. It's different if you're not ready to disclose to people.
But exactly, to an extent where you don't know if you're celebrating your highs and living through your lows together. Okay, if it's a birthday or if it's like a big event in your family, would you want your situationship partner to join in?
Honestly, in my case, if I'm in a situationship, then I would want to end it. If at the minute now, it again, I'm saying talking out of experience,
Hmm.
I wouldn't want them to be around at all altogether in my life if I think it's not heading anywhere. If I think it's unhealthy, I'd want to cut it off completely. But if you're, yes, emotionally attached, invested, and would you, I mean, I would, yes, I would want that person around. I would want that person
So,
around.
can we say that this could be a sign for you to become aware of the fact that you're in a situationship?
Yeah, 100%.
है ना?
Yeah, I think in that sense you're right, because the identifying that you are not ready to disclose this person
Hmm.
is one of the signs. I would
Starting.
say another one would be, and the most common one would be having fights on topics that couples fight about. Remember, you're not in a relationship. She or he are not a couple with you,
Hmm.
but yet you guys fight on things that you would fight with a couple. Like,
That's right.
why didn't you call me, or you slept off without telling me, or
Hmm.
where have you been last 2 days, or why were you talking to her? That's a typical relationship thing. So if you have that, that's another way of identifying your, I mean, if you're someone who is completely unaware or new
Hmm.
to this, and you don't know you're in a situationship, like, I think my advice would be to probably identify anecdotes, identify experiences, small anecdotes while you're with that person, which have the pattern of a relationship, even though you don't have the title of a relationship. Then that's what it is. Then either you identify and walk away, or you have a talk with that person and try to transition into a relationship.
Would you have an anecdote that you would want to share
Yes,
that could help us understand better?
like, for instance, I met someone once when I was traveling,
Mm-hmm.
and we hit it off, amazing, and we hung out a few times, and there was clear attraction, physical as well, mental, all of that. But It grew slowly into emotional after some time,
Hmm.
but she put a clause of it being exclusive with her
Okay. And you were not okay with that.
because it was clear that we were never going to be in the same country. There
Mm-hmm.
was not even a potential chance that we'll land up in the same country. And she did think about living in the moment, though her
Right.
intention of living in the moment was quite pure. It was based on that we love each other's company and, we are good for each other. We're not unhealthy for each other.
Hmm.
But the situation was not healthy. And the minute she asked for exclusivity is where I was like, how do you do that? If I know
Hmm.
you're not going to be someone I'm going to end up with, if I know that subconsciously and I'm living in Mumbai or I'm living in another city and you're in a country where I'm never going to land up with,
Hmm.
I'm going to meet people, I'm going to unconsciously potentially look for a partner.
I think one thing that I've understood so far is that for a millennial, I think it's more circumstance based. But when I talk about a Gen Z, because things are more uncertain, things are more fluid, things can be altered. I think there is a lot of fear. So I think people in the Gen Z operate from fear, and people in millennial are operating out of their circumstance
Yeah, I
or
think
where they are in life.
I would say practicality is a lot more. And I
Practicality.
think that comes with, I don't think it's a Gen Z millennial thing per se. It's, I think, the age you're at. So even a Gen Z now, 10 years from now, would probably be saying what I'm saying, And
Maybe I'll be sitting there.
yeah, maybe you'll
We
be
have somebody new.
somebody there.
But
But
don't worry, we'll add one more chef for you.
sure, sure. But I can be behind the camera, rolling
Oh,
it,
yeah,
directing it.
maybe.
But the other part is that sometimes it can also happen that a Gen Z may agree with me. This is also very possible because it's purely based on experience. And I'm talking about this after firsthand having numerous situationships, which I did not know were situationships.
Hmm.
I mean, some of them I was in love with the woman and she probably had the same feeling, but we were heading absolutely nowhere and we were not officially together. And like you said, it was under the wraps. The
Hmm.
world didn't know. Her best friends didn't know. I was not there for her birthday,
Hmm.
but we were literally committed to each other. So I guess it comes back to experience, but definitely Gen Z looks at it probably because of the age. Again, I'm not talking so much of the generation. It's more to do with the age. They look at
Hmm.
it differently. From a millennial, probably look at it in more practical way. I mean, I was a crazy romantic when I was very young, and now I would definitely weigh in the reality of things before I
Hmm.
take a dive in.
As you rightly pointed out, the amount of affection that you had for that person. I think if you're ending a situationship, it can most definitely have the same impact that ending a normal relationship would have. Do
Yeah,
you agree?
yeah. I think it depends case to case. But look, I'll tell you what. What hurts you the most when you separate from a person? Usually, technically speaking, what is the biggest struggle that we humans have when someone leaves us or dies or breaks up or moves on? The most impactful thing is memories.
Hmm.
The time you shared with them or the experience you had with them or the little joys of things you had with them, those are the things that trigger emotions.
And the fact that they will not be experienced again.
Yes,
Huh.
the fact that that person has left you
And then
and you
there's
can't experience that
distance.
again
Correct.
is something that really troubles you. So I think when it comes to situationships,
Hmm.
if it's elongated or if you had some memories with that person or tons of them, if it's a long term situationship, then you're developing more memories. If you literally live like a couple through this period, on and off, on and off, on and off, whatever it is, and then you landed up literally having enough memories, then it's probably going to struggle more. If you're having a situationship where you're like, hey, I like this person, she likes me, we go on a few dates, and then you realize she started having expectations, you drag it for a couple of months and then you leave it, then you're probably not going to be that hurt.
Right.
So I think it's uh, case to case, but definitely it's all based on how many memories you've built
Yeah.
up, piled up over the period.
I think we can circle back to the thing that we had established with respect to attachment, how attached you are with respect to the
Exactly.
physicality,
Yeah.
or just being involved physically and mentally and emotionally and spiritually.
Right. From your experience with situationship around
Hmm.
you in your friends, your generation,
Yeah.
what do you see happening more? Would you see situationships where two people are struggling to navigate, or have you seen situationship where one is literally treating it like a relationship and the other one is like whatever? What do you see happening more? There are two types, right? From my point of
Yeah.
view.
I think it starts off with being unaware, but once they are in the situation and then they discover that we are in a situationship, then it becomes a conscious attempt to just, make it stay jitna reh sakta hai before it completely ends.
So you think some people are comfortable in situationships,
Yeah,
or they enjoy this is
exactly. Because they feel I have the whole life left to explore and settle down with one person. Why do I have to do that now? If I can have fun with this person because the objective is to explore and to have fun, maybe I can find a partner later while I'm doing my thing. This is working for me.
so how is that different from casual dating?
How is that different from casual? In a situationship, you're not communicating. Casual dating, it's established right in the beginning that this is going to be casual. In a situationship, I don't think you've communicated that this is what my end goal is with respect to you, with
So,
respect to the person you are in the situationship with.
but if you're saying they're consciously doing it, that means they're playing you.
I think it is getting played in Gen Z.
So Kushi, I think we both can agree on one thing, that every person who's in a situationship does not accept that he's in a situationship.
Send this to that one friend who is in a situationship but just won't agree with you. Tell them this.
When you're trying to hide it,
When you don't know when to celebrate your anniversary, it's a situationship.
when you don't know how to introduce that person, it's a situationship.
When you have to walk out of the room to answer their call, it's a situationship.
When you're always living in fear, it's a situationship.
When they tell you they like someone and you don't even know how to respond to it, it's a situationship.
When they go for a party after meeting you, but don't invite you to come along, it's a situationship.
When they only remember you at night, it's a situationship.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Gibberish. I hope you enjoyed it.
And if you did enjoy it, do not forget to drop a like on this video, subscribe to Gibberish, and also follow wherever you're listening.
And guys, lastly, don't forget to share this video with all your friends who are in a situationship.
See you in the next episode of Gibberish.